The autumn rain fell like tears from the gray Montana sky as 9-year-old Lucy Miller stood outside the weathered cabin that had been her whole world. For as long as she could remember, inside, Dr. Patterson was finishing his examination of her father, but Lucy already knew what he would say. She had seen the fever take others in their small frontier community, had watched it steal away neighbors and friends with relentless certainty. "Lucy, sweetheart," Dr. Patterson said gently as he emerged from the cabin, his weathered face heavy with the weight of delivering terrible news to a child. "I'm so sorry. Your father passed peacefully just a few minutes ago." Lucy nodded, her small hands clutching the worn rag doll her mother had made before the influenza took her. 2 years earlier, she had been preparing for this moment for days, watching her father grow weaker, listening to his labored breathing in the night. "My dad died today," Lucy said quietly, the words falling into the rain-soaked silence like stones into a deep well. Dr. Patterson knelt beside her, his kind eyes filled with concern for this brave little girl who had already faced more loss than most adults. "Lucy, do you have any family? Anyone who can take care of you?" Lucy shook her head. "Just me and Dad. He always said if anything happened to him, I should go to the church folks in town, but that's 20 miles away, and I don't know how to get there." The doctor was quiet for a moment, clearly wrestling with the problem of what to do with an orphaned child in the remote Montana wilderness. "Well, we'll figure something out. For now, you can stay with my wife and me tonight." But as they prepared to leave the only home Lucy had ever known, the sound of hoof beats echoed through the valley. A lone rider was approaching through the rain, his broad-shouldered silhouette recognizable even in the gray afternoon light. "That's Mr. MacLeod," Lucy said with the first hint of hope she had felt all day. "He's our neighbor from the big ranch up the valley." James MacLeod was a man in his 40s, a successful cattle rancher who had always been kind to Lucy and her father. When her mother died, he had brought food and helped with the harder farm work. When her father fell ill, he had ridden to town to fetch Dr. Patterson. "James." Dr. Patterson called out as MacLeod dismounted near the cabin, "I'm afraid we've lost him. Tom Miller passed about an hour ago." MacLeod's weathered face showed genuine grief at the news. Tom Miller had been a good man, a hard-working homesteader who had carved a life from the wilderness through sheer determination and love for his family. "And the little one?" MacLeod asked, his eyes finding Lucy standing beside the doctor. "She's alone now," Dr. Patterson replied quietly. "No family, nowhere to go. I was thinking of taking her to the church orphanage in Helena, but it's a long journey for such a young child." Lucy looked up at Mr. MacLeod, remembering how he had always spoken gently to her, how he had carved her a wooden horse last Christmas, how he had sat with her father during the worst of the fever. There was something in his eyes now, a sadness, that seemed to match her own. "Lucy," MacLeod said, kneeling down to her eye level, "I'm so sorry about your father. He was a good man, and he loved you very much." "I know," Lucy whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "He told me every day." MacLeod was quiet for a moment, studying this brave little girl who had nursed her dying father with the devotion of someone far beyond her years. "Lucy, I have a proposition for you. My ranch is big and sometimes lonely. I could use some help around the house, someone to talk to in the evenings. Would you consider coming to live with me?" Lucy's eyes widened with surprise and desperate hope. "You mean it? You'd really want me to stay?" "More than that," MacLeod said with gentle sincerity. "If you're willing, you can stay forever. I'd be honored to take care of you, to be your family." Dr. Patterson looked relieved at this unexpected solution. "James, that's very generous of you. But are you prepared for the responsibility of raising a young child?" MacLeod smiled at Lucy, seeing in her something that reminded him of his own sister, who had died young. "Doctor, I've been thinking for some time that my life was missing something important. Maybe Lucy and I can help each other fill that empty space." Lucy threw her arms around MacLeod's neck, holding tight to this man who was offering her something she had thought was lost forever: a home, a family, a place to belong. "Thank you, Mr. MacLeod," she sobbed into his shoulder. "I promise I'll be good. I'll work hard and help with everything." "Lucy," MacLeod said gently, stroking her hair, "you don't have to earn your place with me. You just have to be yourself. And it's not Mr. MacLeod anymore. You can call me Uncle James, or just James, or whatever feels right to you." As they prepared to leave the cabin where Lucy had been born and raised, she looked back one last time at the place where she had been, happy with her parents. The rain was washing away the last traces of her old life, but she was walking toward something new, something that might become even better. "James," Lucy said as he helped her onto his horse, "will you tell me about your ranch? Will I have my own room?" "You'll have your own room, your own space, and all the time you need to grieve and heal," James replied as they rode through the valley toward his spread. "And Lucy, I want you to know something important." "What's that?" "Your father asked me to take care of you if anything happened to him. He knew you'd be safe with me, and he wanted you to know that choosing to live and be happy isn't betraying his memory. It's honoring it." Lucy felt a warmth spread through her chest at those words. Her father had thought ahead, had made sure she would be cared for even after he was gone. Maybe this wasn't the end of her world after all. Maybe it was the beginning of a new one. The MacLeod ranch appeared through the rain like a promise of shelter and safety. The large log house sat in a protected valley, surrounded by barns and corrals that spoke of prosperity and stability. Smoke rose from the chimney, and warm light glowed from the windows. "Welcome home, Lucy," James said as they approached the house. "This is your place now, for as long as you want it." As they dismounted and walked toward the welcoming light of the ranch house, Lucy realized that while this day had begun with the end of everything she had known, it was ending with the promise of everything she might become. Subscribe to our channel to see what happens next. How will Lucy adapt to life on the MacLeod ranch? What challenges and joys await as she builds a new family with James? Don't miss the next chapter of this heartwarming story of love, loss, and new beginnings. The first weeks at the MacLeod ranch were a mixture of wonder, grief, and cautious hope for 9-year-old Lucy Miller. James had been true to his word, giving her a beautiful room with windows that looked out over the valley, more clothes than she had ever owned, and most importantly, the patient understanding of someone who knew that healing takes time. "Lucy," James said one morning as she helped him feed the horses, a task she had taken on with the determination to prove her worth. "You don't have to work so hard. You're not an employee here. You're family." Lucy paused in her work, her small hands still gripping the feed bucket. "But I want to help. I need to earn my keep." James knelt down beside her, his weathered face kind but serious. "Listen to me, sweetheart. You don't have to earn anything. You belong here because I want you here, because this ranch is better with you in it." It was a lesson Lucy was slowly learning, though the fear of being sent away lingered in the back of her mind. She had heard stories of children who were taken in by families only to be turned out when they became inconvenient or expensive to keep. But James seemed different. He never showed impatience when she woke up crying from nightmares about her father. He answered her endless questions about ranch life with gentle humor. Most importantly, he had kept every promise he had made to her, no matter how small. "James," Lucy said one evening as they sat by the fireplace, she with a book he had given her and he with ranch ledgers, "can I ask you something, anything?" "Sweetheart, why did you want me to stay? You could have just let Dr. Patterson take me to the orphanage. Your life would be easier without a little girl to worry about." James set aside his ledgers and looked at Lucy with the serious attention he always gave her questions. "Lucy, do you remember when your mother was sick and your father sat by her bed every night, even when the doctor said there was no hope?" "Yes." He said love meant staying, even when it was hard. "That's right. Well, I've learned that love also means opening your heart when someone needs you, even when it changes everything about your life. You needed a home, and I needed someone to remind me what home really means." "What does it mean?" James smiled, thinking of how much richer his life had become since Lucy's arrival. "It means having someone to cook for, someone to worry about, someone to share the sunset with. It means hearing laughter in the house and knowing that tomorrow will be better, because you'll be here too." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. James opened it to find Mrs. Henderson from the neighboring ranch, her face creased with concern. "James, I hope you don't mind me stopping by so late, but I wanted to check on you and..." The little one. Some folks in town have been talking. Lucy felt her stomach clench with familiar fear. In her experience, when adults talked about orphan children, it usually meant trouble. What kind of talking, Margaret? James asked, though. His voice remained calm. Well, there are some who think it's not proper for a single man to be raising a young girl. They're saying maybe she'd be better off with a proper family, or in an institution where she can learn women's work. Lucy moved closer to James, her small hand slipping into his larger one. The thought of being taken away from the first place she had felt safe since her father's death was terrifying. And what do you think, Margaret? James asked pointedly. Mrs. Henderson looked at Lucy, taking in the child's clean clothes, healthy color, and the way she stood confidently beside James. I think that little girl looks happier and healthier than she has since her mother died. I think you're doing right by her, James MacLeod. Thank you for that, James replied with relief, and for warning me about the talk. After Mrs. Henderson left, Lucy looked up at James with worried eyes. Are they going to take me away? James knelt down and took her hands in his. Lucy, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I have legal guardianship papers for you, properly filed with the territorial court. Nobody can take you away from here unless you wanted to go. This is your home, and I am your family, and that's not changing. But what if the law says you can't? Keep me, then I'll change the law, James said with the quiet determination of a man who had fought for everything he owned. Lucy, I made you a promise the day your father died. I said you could stay forever, and I meant it. There's no power on earth that's going to break that promise. That night, Lucy slept peacefully for the first time since the gossip had started. She was beginning to understand that James MacLeod was a man who kept his word no matter what obstacles appeared. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Judge Harrison from the territorial court, accompanied by a stern-looking woman in dark clothes who introduced herself as Mrs. Whitman. From the Children's Welfare Society, Mr. MacLeod, Judge Harrison said formally, we've received complaints about the placement of the Miller child. There are concerns about the propriety of a single man raising a young girl. Lucy pressed close to James, her heart pounding with terror. These were the kind of official people who had the power to tear families apart with a stroke of a pen. Your Honor, James replied calmly, I have proper legal guardianship granted by your own court. What's the nature of these complaints? Mrs. Whitman stepped forward with the cold efficiency of someone who dealt with children as cases, rather than individuals. Mr. MacLeod, while your intentions may be admirable, this child needs the guidance of a proper woman, education and domestic skills, and religious instruction that only an institution can provide. I see, James said thoughtfully. Mrs. Whitman, would you like to examine Lucy's current situation before making your recommendations? That would be appropriate, the woman agreed. What followed was the most thorough inspection Lucy had ever experienced. Mrs. Whitman examined her room, her clothes, her books, and even tested her reading and arithmetic skills. Judge Harrison observed quietly, taking notes and asking occasional questions. Lucy, Mrs. Whitman said finally, tell me about your daily routine here. Lucy found her courage and spoke clearly. I get up at sunrise and help James with the morning chores. Then, I have lessons, reading and writing and arithmetic. After lunch, I help with the horses, and in the evening, James and I read together, or he tells me stories about the ranch and your religious instruction. James reads Bible stories to me, and we say prayers together. He's teaching me about being grateful and kind to others. Mrs. Whitman made notes, her expression unreadable. And you're happy here. Lucy looked up at James, seeing the love and concern in his eyes, remembering all the ways he had shown her that she mattered to him. Ma'am, this is the first place I've felt safe and loved since my parents died. James takes care of me like I'm really his daughter. Judge Harrison closed his notebook and addressed James directly. Mr. MacLeod, I've seen enough. Your guardianship of Lucy Miller is exemplary. The complaints against you appear to be based on prejudice rather than evidence. Mrs. Whitman looked disapproving, but nodded reluctantly. The child is clearly well cared for. However, I would recommend periodic visits to ensure continued proper development. After the officials left, Lucy threw her arms around James in relief and gratitude. "You really did it. You kept your promise, Lucy," James said, holding her close. "I'll always keep my promises to you. You're not just staying here temporarily. You're my daughter now, in every way that matters." That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in brilliant colors, Lucy felt something she had thought was lost forever, the deep security of knowing she was truly home. "James," she said quietly, "I love you. Not just because you saved me, but because you made me feel like I belong somewhere again." "I love you too, sweetheart," James replied, his voice thick with emotion. "You've given me the greatest gift anyone can give, the chance to be a father." Subscribe to our channel to see the heartwarming conclusion. How will Lucy's life unfold as she grows up on the ranch? What lessons will she learn about love, family, and finding your place in the world? Don't miss the final chapter where a little girl's forever home becomes the foundation for an extraordinary life. 8 years had passed since that rain-soaked day when 9-year-old Lucy Miller had lost her father and found a new family with James MacLeod, now 17. Lucy had grown into a confident young woman whose education included not only the traditional skills expected of frontier women, but also ranch management, business correspondence, and the kind of practical wisdom that came from being raised by a man who believed girls could do anything they set their minds to. The MacLeod Ranch had prospered under their joint management, but more importantly, it had become known throughout Montana Territory as a place where love had triumphed over loss, where a chosen family had proven stronger than blood ties. Lucy, James called out one crisp spring morning as she worked with a spirited young colt in the training corral. "We've got visitors coming up the road." Lucy looked toward the approaching riders and immediately recognized the lead figure, Dr. Patterson, now grayer but still making his rounds to the scattered homesteads of the territory. Behind him rode 2 other men and what appeared to be a young child. "Dr. Patterson," Lucy called out with genuine warmth as the group reached the ranch. "It's wonderful to see you again." The doctor dismounted with the careful movements of advancing age, his weathered face brightening at the sight of the remarkable young woman Lucy had become. "Lucy MacLeod, you're looking well. Ranch life certainly agrees with you," Lucy smiled at the use of her chosen name. Though she had never been legally adopted due to territorial complications, she had taken MacLeod as her surname and been accepted as James's daughter by everyone who mattered. "What brings you out our way, Doctor?" James asked, though his experienced eyes had already noted the small figure huddled behind one of the other riders. "I'm afraid it's a familiar situation," Dr. Patterson replied sadly. "The influenza outbreak near Billings has left us with another orphan child. 7-year-old Timothy Walsh lost both his parents last week." Lucy felt her heart clench with sympathy and recognition. She knelt down as the boy was helped from the horse, seeing her own terror and confusion reflected in his hollow eyes. "Hello, Timothy," she said gently. "I'm Lucy, and this is my father, James. We're very sorry about your parents." Timothy looked up at her with the wariness of a child who had learned that adults couldn't always be trusted to keep their promises. "Are you gonna send me to the orphanage?" "Well," James said, kneeling beside Lucy, "that depends. Would you like to stay here with us for a while? We've got plenty of room, good food, and we could use some help around the ranch." Lucy watched Timothy's face, seeing the same desperate hope she remembered feeling 8 years ago. "Timothy, I was your age when I came here. My father had just died, and I thought my whole world was over. But James gave me something I didn't think I'd ever have again." "What?" Timothy whispered. "A home, a real home where I could be safe and loved and grow up to be whoever I wanted to be." Dr. Patterson smiled at the exchange, remembering the scared little girl he had found with her dying father all those years ago. "James, Lucy, if you're willing to take Timothy in, I think it would be the best thing that could happen to him. More than take him in," James said, his decision made the moment he saw the child's need. "Timothy can stay forever if he wants to. This ranch is big enough for a growing family." Over the following months, Lucy found herself becoming not just a big sister to Timothy, but a mentor and guide who understood his grief and fear in ways that even James couldn't. She helped him through the nightmares, the moments of overwhelming sadness, and the gradual process of learning to trust that this new family wouldn't disappear. "Lucy," Timothy said one evening as she tucked him into bed in the room that had become his, "do you think my ma and pa would be happy that I'm here?" Lucy thought of her own parents, of the love they had given her, and the strength that love had provided through all the years since their death. "Timothy, I think your parents would be grateful that you found people who love you. They would want you to be happy and safe. Will you always be here? Will you always be my sister?" Lucy smiled, remembering asking James similar questions when she was Timothy's age. Forever and always, little brother. That's what family means. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the ranch house door. James opened it to find Sheriff Williams from the county seat, accompanied by a well-dressed man wearing an expensive suit and a stern expression. "Evening, James," Sheriff Williams said with obvious reluctance. "This is Attorney Morrison from Helena. He says he has legal business concerning the Walsh boy." Lucy felt her stomach clench with familiar dread. In her experience, when lawyers arrived with legal papers, it usually meant someone was trying to separate families. "Mr. MacLeod," Attorney Morrison said formally, "I represent the estate of Harold Walsh, Timothy's uncle. Mr. Walsh has recently died, leaving a substantial inheritance, but only if Timothy is raised in a proper Christian institution with formal education." James's expression grew wary. "And what does that mean practically?" "It means Timothy Walsh must be placed in the Helena Boys Academy within 30 days, or the inheritance reverts to the state. We're talking about nearly $5,000, enough to secure the boy's future." Lucy moved protectively closer to Timothy, who had emerged from his room at the sound of voices. The boy pressed against her side, clearly frightened by the presence of official-looking strangers. "Timothy," Lucy said gently, "these men are talking about sending you to a school in Helena. It would mean leaving the ranch, leaving James and me." Timothy's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to go. This is my home now, Lucy. Tell them I want to stay here." Attorney Morrison looked at the scene with professional detachment. "Young man, this inheritance could provide you with the finest education, social connections, and financial security. Surely that's worth more than staying on some remote ranch." "No," Timothy said firmly, his young voice carrying surprising strength. "Money can't buy what I have here. Lucy and James love me. They're my family now." James stepped forward, his voice calm, but carrying the authority of a man who had fought for his family before. "Mr. Morrison, what exactly are the terms of this inheritance?" Morrison consulted his papers. "Timothy must be enrolled in a recognized educational institution, receive formal religious instruction, and be prepared for a career in business or law. The ranch environment is deemed unsuitable for producing a gentleman." Lucy felt anger rise in her chest at the implication that their loving home was somehow inferior to a cold institution. "Mr. Morrison, with respect, Timothy is receiving an excellent education here. James has been teaching him reading, writing, arithmetic, and practical skills that will serve him well in any career." "Miss MacLeod," Morrison replied condescendingly, "while your intentions are admirable, a young woman from a ranch hardly qualifies as an educational authority." That's when James's patience ran out. "Actually, Mr. Morrison, Lucy has been educated by private tutors I brought in from back east. She speaks 3 languages, has studied literature, mathematics, science, and business management. She's more qualified to educate Timothy than most of the teachers in your fancy academy." Sheriff Williams, who had remained silent during the exchange, finally spoke up. "Attorney Morrison, the boy seems well cared for here. What's the real rush to move him?" Morrison's professional facade slipped slightly. "The estate executors are eager to close this matter. If the boy refuses the inheritance, it simplifies the distribution of assets." Lucy understood immediately. They don't want Timothy to claim his inheritance. They want him to refuse it so they can keep the money for themselves. That's a serious accusation. "Young lady," Morrison said angrily. "It's also true," James added grimly. "Mr. Morrison, I think we need to examine these inheritance documents more carefully. And Timothy needs proper legal representation, not someone working for the people trying to cheat him." The legal battle that followed lasted 3 months, but James had resources and determination that the estate executors hadn't counted on. With proper legal counsel, they proved that Timothy could receive his inheritance while remaining at the ranch, provided he received formal education and proper oversight. Most importantly, they proved that love and family came in many forms, and that the MacLeod Ranch provided everything a child needed to grow into a good man. "Lucy," Timothy said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, "now a family tradition. I'm glad I stayed. Even if there hadn't been any money, I would have chosen you and James." Lucy smiled, thinking of her own journey from orphaned child to confident young woman. "Timothy, the best inheritances aren't money or property. They're the love and values that families pass down to each other." "What inheritance did James give you?" Lucy looked at her father, who was teaching one of the ranch hands how to properly saddle a difficult horse with patience and encouragement. "He gave me the knowledge that I was worth loving, that I could accomplish anything I set my mind to, and that family is something you choose to build with the people who matter most to you." Years later, Lucy MacLeod would become one of the most successful businesswomen in Montana Territory, eventually inheriting and expanding the ranch into a major operation. Timothy would use his inheritance to fund educational programs for orphaned children throughout the West, but both of them would always remember that their greatest fortune came from a rain-soaked day, when a man with a big heart had said the magic words, "You can stay forever." The ranch house still stood in its protected valley, but it had grown over the years to accommodate the extended family of children who had found their way to James MacLeod's door. Each of them had heard the same promise Lucy had heard that first day, and each of them had learned that forever wasn't just a word, but a commitment that grew stronger with each passing year. Subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories from the American frontier. This incredible tale of Lucy, Timothy, and James proves that the greatest inheritance we can give or receive is the knowledge that we are loved and valued for who we are. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join us for more emotional journeys that show how chosen families can be stronger than blood ties, and how the promise of forever can heal even the deepest wounds. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that home isn't where you come from, but where you're welcome to stay.